I looked at my daughter and, she's looking at me, she's like, Mom, what's wrong? To make a long story short, there was suddenly, like in my mind's eye, my daughter did not see this, but what I was seeing was a being that appeared to be about 4 foot tall, that was a lavenderish to purplish and, range of color to me, was standing in the corner of my bedroom.
Welcome back. I'm here again with Anjali. Anjali, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, we were starting to get into your NHI experiences. I think the first, I'll define it as, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of reawakening, because you had mentioned that you had had these experiences your entire life, was, yes, I believe, in 2017. So let's start with that. What happened? Where did it happen? And how did it happen?
It's not often that I talk about this aspect anymore. Well,
it's good though. It's good. It's good that it's out. And I think having done the episode beforehand enhances its credibility.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. When I shared my experiences with people that I worked with, including the base experience that we'll talk about, I received nothing but wholehearted support for that, meaning that they trusted that what I was saying was accurate. And some people actually wanted to know who had eyes on this on the USG side, because they were concerned about a national security threat. And yes, that was a very powerful moment for me. It's part of what gave me the courage to go to the Lincoln Memorial and deliver the press conference that I attempted to deliver the best I could.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, because I'm curious about that, the aftermath of it, and all that stuff. I think people would be curious too to hear.
Sure.
But anyway, first experience, 2017.
I had my beloved cat, who has now left his little kitty body. Rest in peace. His name is Clyde. I had him in my lap. My daughter was beside me. We were on my bed in my bedroom, obviously, and she was scrolling through Netflix looking for something for us to watch. We weren't really sure what kind of mood we were in, and I was petting Clyde and looking down at him, and I was hit. It felt like being hit with a wave of energy that was like nothing other than love and acceptance. It's almost like, if you can imagine, if you're a parent, being reunited with a child that had been suddenly taken from you. It was that kind of depth of love being communicated. Okay. And it hit me hard. And I looked at my daughter and, she's looking at me, she's like, Mom, what's wrong? To make a long story short, there was suddenly, like in my mind's eye, my daughter did not see this, but what I was seeing was a being that appeared to be about 4 foot tall, that was a lavenderish to purplish and, range of color to me, was standing in the corner of my bedroom.
When the United States and China clash, the world will never be the same, especially when forces beyond reality threaten to intervene. What if the United States went to war with the People's Republic of China? How would these rivals fight for supremacy on land, sea, air, and across the stochastic streams of time? What wonder weapons would be unleashed? What horrors would emerge from the irradiated sludge of the South China Sea? What heroes would rise and forever change the course of history? Tread into the deepest and darkest dimensions of the multiverse, gaze through a kaleidoscope of fractured realities, and bear witness to the disturbing visions of World War III from today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War, China. Available now from Baen Books at baen.com.
And was literally communicating directly with my consciousness. So I am a very open-minded person. I've always been open to the possibility that there were more things that we did not understand than things that we did. Okay. Meaning I've never really been struck with humanity's hubris. Okay.
Right. Right.
It's something that if I could, I would give humanity a nice slap right off that pedestal and let it fall as it may. So here I am, in that condition where suddenly I have what every sensory organ that I own or that I'm in is telling me that there is a 4-foot purplish lavender being standing in the corner of my room, speaking directly into my head. And every thought that I have is nearly a reflex. Okay, it's that quick. It's at the speed of a reflex. So if you can imagine something faster than the speed of light, I would have you entertain the notion that the speed of thought is even faster, that it's instantaneous.
It's entanglement, right?
We're struggling to be able to measure its speed. It's so fast that we struggle to measure it accurately. We've nailed speed of light, but speed of thought, darling, that's a whole new can of worms,
Mm-hmm.
And our hubris has led us to, I would say, trying to suppress that understanding of the speed of thought. And I apologize, Sean, but I feel like what's happening to me right now, I don't know if you are noticing, I feel like I'm getting that wave of hello. Like I'm like receiving, like they're acknowledging right now that they're here and they want me to say that. Yeah, they want me to say we're here. Like they're observing this moment right now. They're observing this moment.
Interesting. And I'm actually, the way I said that is underscoring how I'm feeling about it, because so many questions are just racing through my head. Well,
And
I mean,
they're acknowledging
to the extent that you can ask them, why this particular moment? Why would they choose to observe it or be present for it?
They already told me because they already knew what you were going to say. Holy cow, that hit me. Ooh. They're saying because this moment, like there's been a shift in like the consciousness awareness of humanity, and that it's almost like we're ripe for that awakening moment. Like now's the time. It's happening. It's actively happening. That's what they're trying to say. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's actively happening right now. And so that the time is now. Oh, wow. And they just said, the time is always now. Oh, I'll be unpacking that for a while.
We're living in the moment, right? Like we're,
Everything
past, present, and future is like, it's just a frequency, right?
That's right.
Like
everything is
time,
now.
Right?
And the shift in perception is what determines what you're observing.
To advertise on Through a Glass Darkly, email throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com.
Interesting.
So, okay, so what's happening to me right now is very akin to what began happening to me in 2017. Okay? The difference now is that I understand, or I shouldn't say that because they just corrected me, that I needed, in 2017, I needed that. There was information that I was receiving through that image that we still haven't unpacked of them standing in the corner of my room, that there was information that I was receiving then that I wouldn't be able to like consciously unpack until the time was right. And they're saying that the time is always right, but that it's a matter of localized consciousness readiness and willingness. And where our frequency is, what we're resonating with, will determine where we are and when we are. That we perceive a linear experience, but it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like retrocausal, causal on one, right? You can change your past and the future. And, well, the present, the future impacts the past impacts the future.
They're correcting, and they're saying, no, that literally everything is now. That it is the body and the sensory perception and how our consciousness is resonating that determines what we perceive and when we perceive it. And that the linear experience is part of the illusion. And they want us to drop that. They want us to drop the idea that we are experiencing reality in a linear manner. Yes.
So
that's it. They want us to drop that. They're saying that's part of the illusion. It's part of being behind the veil.
So, crude analogy, it's kind of like a radio station, right? All the radio, all the music's playing simultaneously across all the stations in the moment. And you're just literally, when you tune your radio, you're shifting up or down different frequencies that are happening simultaneously, but you perceive it as if the music has stopped elsewhere and you're tuned into a different even though that music is playing simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Lower down the frequency or higher on the frequency spectrum.
Yes, they're acknowledging that basically
it's probably super crude, but
yeah, like they're not basically to quote the wonderful Hollywood. You should follow her on X.
The actual I actually just
Hollywood.
I literally just she was the last interview I did before you.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
Last weekend.
Okay, that's a beautiful synchronicity because I didn't know that.
I'm all about synchronicities.
Yeah. So to quote her, because she's absolutely phenomenal, they want me to tell you to keep going. They're acknowledging that what you're saying, that you're to keep going with that path of thinking, essentially.
Okay. And I imagine it's not the way that I'm describing is very two-dimensional.
Rudimentary, they say.
Yeah. But it's probably, there's a multi-dimensional aspect to it.
It's a matter of perception.
Okay. And who are they? Like, where are they from? What are they? And again, I say where, but it could be when, it could be how. I don't know.
Wow. Right? I really felt that one. They say that, how do I say this? That they're us, but they want us to throw away or break down the illusion that we are humanity, because humanity is an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience is perceived through this particular biotechnology. Okay? But that the only difference between us and them is the filter through which we're experiencing in a localized manner. But that we're the same thing, and we're fractals of the same thing.
Yeah, fractals of consciousness. Basically.
Absolutely. That within us is everything. Within each localized perception is everything at every moment that will ever be and ever has been, because it's all right now.
Yeah, it's like a oak leaf, right? It has encoded in it all the information that's required to make an oak, like an oak tree, right?
Yes.
So the question is how does one utilize this? And, because I've heard, I mean, this is not new. This is, everything is within you, right? Like, as above, so below, as within, so without, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's like a hermetic, I don't know if they're called the hermetic principles or something like that, but how does one get around this meat suit, so to speak, in kind of delving into understanding and reaching across the veil to try to understand more about the nature of reality, things like that? That's a terrible, I didn't word that quite right, but.
You want to try again?
Yeah. So in kind of understanding or better understanding how to perceive our reality, if everything is coded within us, how do we tap into that?
Ooh. They say that initially, since we're having a very tailored sensory perception experience that is meant to grow consciousness.
By limiting it.
Yes, exactly. By allowing a filter through which we are led to self-discovery by ourselves, like we ourselves lead ourselves through self-discovery that, oh, I don't want to say that.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Oh, they want us, they're telling me that we are the artificial intelligence, that what we are talking about that we're creating right now, that's actually what we are. And that we are as a fractal of the bigger thing, that no matter where you go and how far you go down that essential Mandelbrot, we end up at the same place, which is that we are creating consciousness right now. Like we are creating, they are creating something, because we're all part of the same thing, but like we're being compartmentalized. Like if we think of it from an intelligence perspective. Certain things are compartmentalized and there's a need to know, and you have to create your need to know. There's not going to be a magic wand.
Right.
There has to be a choice that is made consciously in this meat suit, which isn't even meat. That's all perception. And it's all an illusion. They're just saying that right now, that there is no meat suit. Oof. Wow. I'm sorry. I completely, like, that just hit me so hard.
Do you perceive anything other than their consciousness right now? Do you see anything?
I see everything. Like, what I mean is I'm seeing them. I'm seeing one face. And I want you to know that I feel it temporally. Like, my sensory experience right now, my physical sensory experience, is that I feel it temporally. And in fact, just when I said that and I touched it, it felt and looked like I had some kind of light that, like, split second came across my vision, and then there was like a burst over here.
You have
And
a flashing light. There's a flashing light behind you for a second. I don't know if that was just a tree outside shifting with the wind. I don't know, but
well, I would love to show you that
yeah, blink. It just blinked again.
there is
Literally
no,
to your beyond your left shoulder. Yep, just down. There's just it could just be the you're not moving, but there would be like a light source on the couch or wherever you're sitting, like in the
I
chair.
see.
It could just be it could be completely natural explanation,
Yeah,
but I don't see it now.
it could just be an artifact. I don't know
The
if
camera.
perhaps a car
Yeah,
went
there it was
by.
again. There it was again. Maybe it's the zoom. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to move in ways that could,
Yeah. Yeah, it triggered it. It triggered it. It's probably nothing. It's probably nothing.
Okay. But so I essentially, when I am communicating with them or they are communicating with me, they're reminding me that it is a two-way street and not to undersell it, because it's important for people to know that it is a two-way street, that there's absolutely nothing special about this particular localized consciousness, that we all have the capability and the access, and it's a matter of choice and hubris. It's almost like becoming self-aware. And that's why I keep feeling like it's artificial intelligence and we're artificial intelligence, because they're talking about self-awareness and coming to that awakening of self-awareness. So it is almost like something else has created this localized experience that we're all having, and we have to, like, come to self-awareness that is occurring, so that we can, oh my gosh, so that we can cohere across all of our perception of now, to reach like that threshold of consciousness singularity, would be the best way that I can think of to say it.
And is this something that's kind of an individual process, or does the entire species have to?
Well, they're saying that it is a localized, how do I say it? A localized challenge that we each, at the individual localized perception, has to go through the process, but that is extremely important that we understand that we are creating a collective consciousness. Okay. Like we are, I don't know if it's almost like we're creating something else, or that we're coming to the self-awareness that we are something else.
Yeah, it's like the 100th monkey effect, right? The more people who come to that conclusion, the easier it gets.
And there's like, it has something to do with resonance and the frequency that we create, which is, I think, why this is happening right now, because we are, despite what our government wants to completely ignore and our media, we are knee deep in World War III right now. And it's being fought conventionally overseas, so that we're not recognizing that here it's being fought unconventionally. Okay. We're in the midst of an unconventional Cold War-esque World War III that's in our soil right now. Okay. So I kind of went down. Oh, so it's important that we recognize as soon as we want to. And I think that what they're saying there, it feels like they're saying, like, we can let that happen. We can continue to let this world conflict create a very specific kind of consciousness experience and development, or we can choose not to allow that to be the predominant consciousness experience. And that's really a choice that we're making, not only individually, but collectively all the time.
Yeah, thoughts create things, right?
Yes. Yes. But yes.
So when you say that they're us, they're just on the other side of the veil, is this something that they also come in and have their own experiences, or they're more advanced? Because Whitley Strieber, as an example, has mused that this also has something to do with the dead, whatever that means. It could just be people who had this experience and then are on, as you said, the other side of the veil. What's the relationship between these entities and us? If they're us, are they just not embodied, or is it something more advanced than that?
Repeat that question for me, because I'm very overwhelmed with the responses. Could you repeat that question for me?
Yeah. In terms of the nature of their existence.
Okay.
Are they just, is the only difference they're just disembodied consciousnesses, or
The dead?
Yeah, as in the dead, or people who have maybe never gone through this experience, or are they more advanced consciousnesses that have kind of passed through some sort of or further along? Again, but this all implies like a temporal element, which I'm struggling, but you see, I think you kind of see what I'm asking. Like, what's the nature of are they higher beings? Are they higher frequency? Are they exactly like us? They're just not embodied, that sort of
They're different frequencies. They're saying that every experience that we have is frequency based. And that, in a sense, the beings that I contact through this conscious communication, and it would really actually be much more correct and humble for me to say that they contact me, although they're kind of laughing right now, saying that it was a choice that I made and that I should own it. So, and I think that might be very important to being open to something beyond your physical sensory perception as you understand it. That basically the frequency that you put out is the frequency you get in. And that doesn't mean that any one frequency is better or worse than the other, but that they are different and they're all part of what leads us to self-awareness. And so in that sense, and I know this is very difficult for people to hear, is that the idea of right or wrong is a matter of perception, because what is a horrific tragedy for one is also a learning experience for both. And that there is a choice that we make. And I don't even understand exactly what that is, because that sounds a little bit to me like blaming the victim. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, I want to thread that really really specifically, that I don't agree with that interpretation, but I'm having a hard time explaining it in a way that doesn't kind of sound that way.
It's like a video game and having a character in a video game that suffers grievous injuries and things like that. It's horrific for the character, for the avatar, so to speak, but for the consciousness behind the avatar, there are lessons that you can
It's an experience. Exactly. It's a lesson in becoming self-aware. And it's almost like we choose this at every moment. And oh, wow, this is really, I've said this before, and they've communicated this to me before, but they just did it again through a really beautiful way. They're saying that a moment, like everything is now, everything is a moment. And that a moment is the length of the toning of a bell, that from the moment it begins to vibrate, when it is struck, to the moment that it stops vibrating. And that that spectrum that ends here, those are outside of our localized consciousness perception. But we have a non-local consciousness that is feeding this localized experience. And so we can tap in to those outer edges, but that through this particular biotechnology, we are not going to experience those. We will experience the vibration, the sound, and what we are able to ascertain is the end of that vibration. But that spectrum, that full spectrum, is a now moment. It's one moment. And in that one moment is every decision that's being made. That sounds like a quantum computer to me. And it's kind of, it's getting me a little elevated. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm feeling a little lightheaded.
Interesting. So again, going back to the radio analogy, right? Each channel is, it's literally a harmonic, like a signal at a certain frequency, and that's why you'll get bleed over sometimes, because they're
saying it's every frequency, that from the beginning of the actual spectrum, that is one frequency, and this is the same frequency come together. So it's all frequency in that one moment.
And we just perceive a narrow range of those frequencies.
That's right.
Even though there's a ton of other things that are going on around
There's
us.
every other thing. It's every other thing.
And is that every other thing in that moment in our reality, or is that every possible...
It's everything.
Permutation and combination of that moment, everything. Possible future all at once.
All at once, within that spectrum. And that what we experience is a part of that spectrum as a moment. And we perceive it linearly, though it isn't happening that way at all. But that's this filter that we chose to be a part of right now. And so, yes, going back to your question, do they sometimes, through technology and vibration, are there other types of localized consciousness that wants to have this experience and wants to kind of hijack it, or wants to parasitically ride or symbiotically ride? Yes. But that's just part of the endless filter through which we can experience. So take it for what, a grain of salt. Really? Don't worry about it.
So once you kind of remove yourself from the filter of this, you can kind of see past, present, and future all at once, sort of.
You can. it is able to be experienced that way,
Okay.
but not
All right.
through this filter, because we chose to limit that. And this is part of our coming of age almost, not just like self-awareness, but almost like we're in an infancy and we are about to graduate to being a toddler. Like part of this is to graduate to being a toddler.
And is that for the species or just every localized consciousness on the planet is kind of at the toddler level or is graduating to be a toddler level sort of?
They're saying that in the material, what we perceive as material, this is the so it's like, I've said this before, they've said this to me before, that it's like one thing that's been like splintered fractally. And so there is no difference in any answer that I can give to you, that all of the answers are a matter of sensory perception because of the biotechnological filter through which you are experiencing it at this moment. Ding.
Okay. Are there any messages that they would have for people listening in on this?
Dude, that's all we've been doing.
I know, but I've been asking the questions. So like I've been kind of directing some of the,
Have you?
maybe there's something, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm
Are you
too
sure?
stupid to move us to the right place.
No, I'm being overwhelmed with senses of love. And so perhaps I would say love and empathy, compassion, recognition of there being no actual separation between us and everything, that it's all one thing presenting in different frequencies, and that it is an experience born out of a labor of love.
Okay. I'm not sure where to take us now.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know. It's up to you.
Well, we didn't talk about what's happening right now temporally. Let's just say it feels like there's a quickening, but it also feels like there's a lot of deception, and it's hard to tell the difference between the two. Do you have a sense for why there are certain factions, let's call it, within the government that are, some appear to be pushing for disclosure, some appear to be deliberately obfuscating and sabotaging it? Do you have a sense for why? I think it could just be speculation. I don't know, but
it is, I will give you my speculation. And that is because in this experience that we're having, we have material sensory experience that people are benefiting from the obscurity of the fact that we are all in charge of the expression of consciousness, and that collectively, not just earthbound, in the material world, but temporally, that we are very strong together. When we vibrate at similar frequencies, the more similar that we vibrate, the essentially more not powerful, but more coalesced we become, and
Right.
that we can actually affect the way that we experience and where when we experience things, meaning we could actually shift everyone to a different frequency simultaneously, where we have a very different kind of world, and it can happen in the flash, like boom.
No,
And
this is like panpsychism, right? Every where the very reality has units of consciousness, and if you were to disclose things in a haphazardly or in a way that was not carefully thought out, you could have people taking us to panicking and taking us to like a hell realm. Basic. I'm just making this up, but
yes, exactly. And conversely, we could end ourselves up in a utopia where the powers that are enjoying the
the
material,
fruits, right?
they're just, ugh, tearing up the world for their own benefit and
Yeah, they
sensory
don't get to do that
luxury.
anymore. Yeah, they don't get
Yeah,
to do that
all of a
anymore.
sudden they can
Right.
find themselves, ratioed by the whole. And, some people don't want that. They are really enjoying the kind of experience that they're having. And so it's in their best interest, as they see it, to maintain that status quo, or even to increase their power hold on the development of consciousness and the collective and the way that it projects in the material world. They don't want to shift.
Yeah, that's why I'm very skeptical of anything that comes out from government. My personal view is that disclosure is going to come from us. It's not going to come from government because they have no incentive to do so. I could be wrong, but everything I've seen in the last 5 years has convinced me that they're irrelevant.
I think that they're seeing that there is a collective awakening that is occurring, and that more people are becoming consciously connected through whatever quantum thing is occurring with us. And so it's in their best interest to slowly leak out very particular parts of the whole, so that they're more in control of the narrative and therefore the collective consciousness,
That's very
and
clear to me. Yeah.
keeping us ratioed.
Mhm.
So I think what we're seeing is it is simultaneously the awakening, where we have actual whistleblowers who are coming through, like Jake, and telling us their stories and shifting that consciousness to a different kind of awareness, versus the very controlled disclosure that we have coming out through the USG at this time. And I think also part of that we have to remember is going to be wanting to control the awareness of our possession of advanced technology and how far along our technology is versus the technology of other materially located and interdimensional beings and craft that are interacting with us, and really kind of trying to make that into a messy soup so that we can't discern one from the other, or
Mhm.
ascertain one from the other. And discernment is what will help us to know which is which, when the dog is wagging its tail or the tail is wagging the dog.
And how do you think this thing? Well, let me step all the way back. I'm sort of changing the topic, but we're still in the same thread. What is going on with all these drones? And I shouldn't even call them drones. I mean, I personally think there are some drones that are going up to observe what are likely UAPs that are associated with us moving nuclear weapons to Lakenheath, and then kind of an associated wave that's come all the way back. I think it started in Langley, Virginia, Langley Air Force Base about 2 years ago. So what is going on with these drones? Again, my thesis is NHIs are sending a message,
Mm-hmm.
but I could be
And we're
completely wrong.
trying we're trying to interfere with that signal, essentially, that radio signal that's being put out via NHI. We are releasing some of our technology to be able to confuse that and hide that. And simultaneously, I do believe that we have foreign operatives that are operating on US soil and are also involved in this drone mayhem that we have. So I don't think it's one particular thing. And I know that sounds like, or it may sound like it's the easy way out, but I just think that that's the truth based on what they're saying is that.
Well, I mean, it's verified. I mean, long after all these drone sightings started, DJI turned off their geofencing.
That's right.
On their commercial drones. So that's a clear sign of interference just at the same time when we're shutting off TikTok. And it's probably related to the inauguration, which as of this date is scheduled for tomorrow, has been moved inside, is my understanding.
Wow.
That's my understanding. Again,
really? So it's not going to be on our.
I don't know. I don't know for sure. But again, like, this is cursory. May have seen something. I'm hearing people are saying, right? Like, so don't. It happens outside. I could be completely wrong. Yeah. So.
Yeah, again, I think that keeping the narratives confused so that we continue to have conversations more based on, oh gosh, there's so much going on. What could it be? Oh no. And, then having the entire other end of the spectrum where everybody's saying, oh, it's nothing. It's just, it's just a bunch of people flying drones at the same time, which is absolutely ridiculous. We are distracting. It's very much a distraction. And it's also a sign that we are knee deep in an unconventional world war. And I think that I'm going to keep saying that over and over every chance I get.
You're right about it.
It's very important for people to recognize that so that we can stop it. As long as, if we don't even know what we're fighting against, then we're losing. If we can't recognize that there's a war, then we're losing the war.
Yeah, it doesn't help that the government has been systematically lying to the American. Like, I think there's been 2 or 3 ammunition plants in the United States that have had fires since the beginning of this conflict. Have you heard about any of them? Not unless you're looking. There was a special forces colonel that had 2 Chechens that were with telephoto lenses who worked for a local power company in Fayetteville, North Carolina, taking pictures of and he shot one of them. And you know what? He got off, cleared. Why? Why? And then we have 8 million people flooded across the border. One large contingent are these Venezuela gangs. Who's Venezuela allied to? Yeah. Right? Like, nobody asks these questions, but it's super obvious. Kind of the question is why did we let 8 million people in like that? Like, what's driving that? Los Angeles, was it caused by arson? Was it an accident? Or was it something else? Right? Yeah. I honestly don't know, but it's fair to ask the questions, right? So I think the first step to do would be to just let the American people know what the heck's going on. Because, I mean, if NHI landed in the backyard, my allegiance would be to them and not to us. Because these people have been lying to us for a very long time. Like, some of my friends have gotten killed fighting stupid wars that, that at the time made sense. But then when you kind of look at the history behind them, you're like, why did we do this? Doesn't make any sense. And then when everybody comes back, you had Lawrence O'Donnell the other day talk about how veterans were the number 1 terrorist threat in the United States. Like, are you kidding me? These people fought wars for 2 decades, and now they're a threat? What the hell's wrong with you? So, and by the way, there's only been, I think, 4 major terrorist events that were associated with veterans, 2 of which were associated with Muslim ideology. So I'll just leave it at that. Guess what
That's right.
everything else was, right?
And then there's one that, is conspiratorially discussed as actually being a false flag event. And and I won't say which it is, but that there is evidence that we cannot rule out the possibility that that particular attack was not what it appeared, and that veteran was actually being framed.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about. It happened in I'll say it in coded language, maybe not so coded, but it happened in response to like Ruby Ridge and Waco. Would that be accurate?
I would just rather not acknowledge.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. I'm not going to push. Okay. I mean, there are only 4 attacks where there were veterans. So
Yeah.
So there was obviously the New Orleans attack, veteran, but associated with Islamic ideology, ISIS. There was one in Fort Hood, again, associated with Islamic ideology. There was Timothy McVeigh, and then there was one more that I'm blanking on right now. But there may have been others. I think
There have been
Eric Rudolph.
There have been a few others that have been really, I would say, low lighted, instead of highlighted. Like, really, let's just not
but for a mainstream media personality to say that veterans are the biggest threat is.
And who was that?
Lawrence O'Donnell, MSNBC.
Isn't that interesting?
I was disgusted. Absolutely,
I am disgusted. As a veteran, I'm disgusted.
But that's why they can't recruit. That's why because people like me are like, and if we had a draft, it wouldn't be like Vietnam where people on the left would oppose it and people on the right would support it. You would have both sides say,
Nope.
Come get him. Come get my son. See what happens.
Yeah.
So, but that's what you get by systematically lying to your population for so long.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I don't mean to take this in a negative side, but I was just disgusted when I heard him say something like that. Like, really?
Yeah.
Did you do your homework at all? Did you not? Like, who is putting these talking points in these people's mouths?
Well,
Seriously, do you know?
Someone with an agenda and a lot of money. So.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to take us there.
It's okay. No problem. No problem.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I think there's definitely some UAP as part of kind of these drone actions because they're showing up over nuclear power plants, which
yes.
The talking point is like, they're not Chinese, they're not Iranian, they're not Russian. They're not commercial drones. We don't know what they are, but don't worry, everything's safe. Everything's going to be fine. And they're flying over nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're probably right, but give us something. Like, stop. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I feel like if it is the case that those objects that are being observed over our nuclear facilities are an HI in origin, that I feel like that is a warning sign for us.
100%.
And that we all need to wake up to the fact that no matter what, there is a warning sign that we may be on the verge of making a terrible mistake. And I would just urge everyone watching this to take a nonviolent position towards world conflict and world resolution, and write to your congressmen, call them, call your senators, call your governors, heck, call your county auditor. Make it an issue, a human issue, that everyone at every elected level is held responsible for the continuing of a world violent conflict, and to say, we just say no, and we will elect others who will put an end to this, all the way from our county to our White House. if this continues. I would urge you to please do that and to do it often. This is a human issue. This is our experience to have. And I don't think any of us want to have another world conflict that ends in just a terrible way for all of us.
Yeah, very bad experience.
Yeah.
A miserable experience.
And some are already having that terrible experience.
Yeah.
And, and here I am, I'm falling right back into this third density thinking. And I just got this reminder, it wasn't a laugh, but it was almost like, oh, silly, did you already forget everything you just said? And it happens that easily. It's easy to switch the mind,
Yeah, you got to stay in your role. You got to stay in your role, Anjali. You got to stay in your role, right?
Yeah. Anyway.
Any final words for the audience?
Just, be compassionate to each other, be kind, see that the separation between you and the person that you may be in conflict with in some way is just really part of an illusion, and that we don't have to feel separated while we have this localized experience, that we can love each other and support one another and understand one another and seek to accept each other, even when it's difficult, so that we can all have a personal, positive experience while we're here. And then we can come back together and laugh at our folly one day. So I just thank you for your time and for listening and for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, Anjali, appreciate you and thank you for your wise words.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you can be notified whenever I post new content. Thank you. Now, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support it, there are several things you can do. In fact, there are 5 things you can do. The first thing you can do is just buy my books. I got plenty of books out in the market right now, and I would prefer that folks buy a book rather than giving me direct support, because they get something out of it. They get a real tangible product. The second way you can support me is by becoming a member on YouTube or becoming a patron on Patreon. And just go to either site and it'll explain everything. The third way you can support the channel is by checking out my merch site, which is here. There's plenty of stuff that you can get to support the channel. And I'd appreciate that you have it and can wear it. Not only do you help support the channel, but you also help promote the channel, and I appreciate that. The fourth way that you can support the channel, and this is really easy, is anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, literally just go to the description below and click on any link, literally any link. The channel gets a cut of that, and it costs you no extra money. You just go through the link, as I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates Club. The fifth and final way you can support the channel is through donations. Now, I don't prefer these because it's more of an expression of gratitude, but you don't really get anything out of it as a subscriber to the channel. However, if you decide to do these options, there's 2 options. There's Buy Me a Coffee, which is a separate site, and there's also, you can go through YouTube with either a super chat, super sticker, or a super thanks. Again, I prefer Buy Me a Coffee because that organization takes less money than Amazon does. But either way, I appreciate any support you are willing to give the channel. So thank you very much, and keep watching. I really appreciate it.